One of the most frustrating things that happens when you're learning how to shoot a carbine really well and you start shooting beyond, say, 50 meters at some real distance, or just trying to shoot good groups with a red dot equipped or LPVO equipped carbine, is hitting the threshold of affordable ammo and the big groups that it makes. Because this is pretty typical for your 55 grain blaster M193 clone ammunition. And that's an extreme spread group of 4.48 inches out of a really good gun. And the ammo there is the limitation, versus shooting some really good hand-loaded match ammunition. Now we're at an extreme spread group of 1.95 inches. So what we're going to experiment with now is, what if somebody made affordable ammunition with a good bullet on it that would shoot much better than this? So you could use something that's not $1 a round, something that's more somewhere between the 40 and 70 cent range, that grouped much better than this, where we could take this rifle and learn how to actually shoot groups without burning something that's designed to shoot at 600 meters. This is my IPSC load with a 53 grain Sierra hollow point MatchKing, and is loaded with Vitavori N130 powder and a match primer. Everything about this is designed to group well, and it requires care in order for me to do correctly. Versus what we will be shooting, the Winchester 223 Remington USA Target, which is basically Lake City M193 with the 55 grain full metal jacket boat tail bullet. What we're gonna try doing is pulling this down and chucking this bullet and seeing what would happen if Winchester, for example, loaded the same thing with the same canister powder, the same brass, primer, charge, everything. The only thing different is we just put a better bullet on there. Doesn't even have to be anything super heavy like a 77 grain MatchKing. It doesn't need to be a Mark 262 clone. Can we get ammo that is inexpensive that will group somewhere in between here and here? So what we will be doing is taking 100 rounds of this Winchester 223 55 grain full metal jacket. This is their target ammunition. And we will be pulling the bullet, replacing it with the Sierra MatchKing 53 grain, and reloading it with the same charge of the same powder. So the only thing different will be the bullet, and then we'll see how it shoots compared to really good match ammo and compared to the ammunition as it currently lies with the old bullet. There we go. And so we will dump this and weigh the powder charge so that we can reproduce this when it's time to load. So this is a bullet that is mostly pulled out of the case, and all it takes is just a little bit of thumb pressure to pop that thing off. We're just gonna leave that for now, and we are gonna measure and somewhere between 26.3 and 26.5 has been consistently what we're seeing. So it's actually a pretty consistent charge weight once I get to the point where we're not losing powder between the bullet puller and the scale. So I think our average is gonna be 26.3, 26.4 as our target to load this ammo. All right, so here is the remnants of 100 rounds broken down into primed case, powder, and projectile. I will also try loading these projectiles with a known good powder for light bullets with Vitavori N130 in my standard IPSC load, and I'll see if those shoot. My hypothesis is that the brass is fine. Lake City brass is pretty good, 223 brass. I don't know about the powder. It's certainly a slow burning, high charge weight. They're about 26.3 to 0.5 grains per case. But just looking at these bullets, looking at the back end of them, I mean, they look pretty nasty. I'm sure they're just crapping these things out at the cyclic, and they spin, and you know, they can generally do cool stuff inside of maybe 50 meters, but I wouldn't even really want to shoot this ammo at 100 for IPSC stuff where I got to shoot alphas on maybe a mini target.
Here's a 30-round group from the IPSC load, the Vitavori N130, and a 53 grain MatchKing from an LMT 14.5-inch cold hammer forged barrel. So it comes in right around 1.87 inches with about a half-inch mean radius. This is pretty good, and it's a fantastic load. All these loads chronoed between 2810 and 2850 feet a second, which puts them supersonic to 450 meters. And here's a projected group size at 450 meters. So that red circle is an 8.46-inch circle overlaid onto a 12 by 25-inch C-zone. So for training ammunition, I know that I can expect to get hits with this out to 450 meters. That'll be harder in the wind and everything, but you get the idea. So now let's take a look at what the Winchester M193 did. This is that Winchester M193. It did pretty badly. We're looking at about a 6.7-inch group and a 1.6-inch mean radius. Muzzle velocity was about the same as the other load, so 55 grain FMJ boat tail at like 20 feet per second, which is supersonic a little bit farther, but the group sizes are kind of bad. This is what that group expanded out to 450 meters looks like. So we have a projected group of 26 inches, or only 57% of that group would fall within a C-zone target of 450 meters. So to reliably hit this target, I would have to apply the same correct hold and wind hold and fire 2 shots to guarantee a hit. And here is the Sierra 53 grain bullet on the M193 brass powder and primer. And as you can see, we have a 2.4-inch group, so much better than just the crappy bullet that comes on the M193. Mean radius of 0.59. So when we expand that out to 450 meters, now we have a 10.8-inch projected group size, and we'll reliably hit this target if we apply the correct hold and windage. So what that says is it'd be really cool if we started loading cheaper ammunition, just put a good bullet on it, and all of a sudden you have something that can be relied upon for shooting at that intermediate distance at a much lower cost than shooting, say, a 77 grain gold medal match or Black Hills Mark 262 clone using different powders and heavier bullets. Just use a better quality bullet that's more accurate, and we'd have a much better training ammunition that serves more purposes than just blasting paper inside of like 50 meters.